The unexpected encounter. In the dimly lit corridors of the Orion 13 space station, Commander Rex Morrow was preparing for a routine mission briefing. The station, located on the edge of the Galactic Alliance's borders, was primarily tasked with research and trade, connecting alien species with human ingenuity. For Rex, today was supposed to be like any other, a morning filled with reports, a briefing, and another shuttle launch. But as he strode down the hallway, something caught his attention, an unusual light in the docking bay. Curious, he adjusted his holo-tablet, accessing the station's security feeds. He noticed an unregistered vessel had just docked, but it wasn't just any ship. It was a streamlined vessel of alien design, sleek and mysterious. Its hull glistened with an iridescent sheen that was both beautiful and unfamiliar. Standing beside it was a figure, tall, slender, and covered in a skin-tight suit that shimmered with colors he had never seen. From the shape and bearing, it was clear this being wasn't human. As the station's chief officer, Rex was expected to personally greet any alien visitors, but he hadn't been informed of any such arrival today. His instincts tingled with suspicion, but he shrugged it off, assuming it might just be a clerical error or an unscheduled diplomatic envoy. He made his way to the docking bay, where the alien stood with a slight air of unease, surveying the surroundings. "Welcome to Orion 13, Rex said, extending a hand in the human greeting, but he wasn't sure if the alien would understand. The alien tilted its head, examining him with large, liquid silver eyes that seemed to pierce right through him. Then, to Rex's surprise, it raised a slender hand and mirrored his gesture, touching its fingers to his. The sensation was strange, a light tingling, almost electric. As it withdrew its hand, the being spoke in a voice that was both melodic and chilling. "Commander Morrow, I am Sarah from the Caetani Alliance," it said in near-perfect English, with only the faintest accent. "I believe we have much to discuss." Rex was taken aback. The Caetani were an elusive species, rumored to have advanced technologies that far surpassed humanity's. There had been whispers in the Galactic Alliance of Caetani vessels spotted near human settlements, but never had one approached a human space station directly. And now one was standing here, addressing him by name. He gestured toward the hallway. "Of course, Sarah. Shall we move to a more private area?" Sarah nodded and followed him down the corridor, her steps barely making a sound, as if she were gliding rather than walking. Rex led her to a small conference room, isolated from the station's main activities. As they entered, the doors slid shut behind them, and Rex keyed in a secure passcode to prevent any surveillance. Taking a seat across from her, he folded his hands on the table. "So, what brings you to Orion 13? Sarah regarded him silently for a moment, her silver eyes reflective, almost hypnotic. Then she leaned forward. "I am here because we have observed certain vulnerabilities in your technology. Vulnerabilities that, should they go unaddressed, might expose humanity to unforeseen dangers." Rex's eyes narrowed. He had heard of the Caetani's advanced intelligence-gathering abilities, but this felt unusually direct. And why would the Caetani be concerned about our vulnerabilities? "Because," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper, "there are others watching you. Forces far beyond what your Galactic Alliance has yet encountered. The Caetani have knowledge of these beings, knowledge that could ensure your survival. But in exchange, we require your cooperation." Rex leaned back, 1,000 questions swirling through his mind. The Galactic Alliance had warned of certain rogue entities that roamed the outer edges of explored space, but they had always seemed like far-off threats, barely worth the worry of day-to-day operations. Now, however, if what Sarah said was true, humanity could be in immediate danger. The realization hit him hard. If the Caetani were willing to share their secrets, it meant that the threat was serious. "What kind of cooperation are you looking for?" he asked cautiously. Sarah paused, her gaze intense. "The Caetani need access to your data on the anomaly detected in Sector 9, the one you've labeled Omega Echo." That anomaly is far more than it appears. If it remains unexplored, it could lead to catastrophic consequences not only for humanity, but for all life in this galaxy. Rex was startled. Omega Echo was classified information, something known only to a select few in the Galactic Alliance. It was a strange cosmic event that had defied all attempts at understanding. A region where time and space seemed to fold upon themselves, defying the laws of physics. But there was something about Sarah's expression that suggested she knew much more about it than even he did. "Accessing that data is not something I can grant lightly," he said slowly, feeling the weight of the decision pressing upon him. Sarah leaned in, her face earnest. "Commander Morrow, I understand the protocols you must follow, but this is not a simple negotiation. The Omega Echo is growing, and if left unchecked, it will destabilize the very fabric of space around it. We have lost countless civilizations to anomalies like this. The Keitani are offering humanity a chance to avoid that fate." Rex felt a shiver down his spine. The idea that anomalies like Omega Echo had destroyed entire civilizations was almost too much to grasp. But he could see the conviction in Sarah's eyes, the urgency of her mission. He took a deep breath, realizing he was standing on the edge of a decision that could shape humanity's fate. "All right," he said at last, "but I need assurances. If I grant you access to our data, you must work with us, share your findings, help us understand this anomaly, and prepare for whatever threats might come. We're not interested in being pawns in a larger game." Sarah's expression softened, and she inclined her head. "Commander Morrow, you have my word. The Keitani do not seek to control humanity. We only wish to prevent another tragedy. Together, we can face what lies ahead." Rex nodded, feeling a strange sense of relief and excitement. For the first time in years, he felt like he was standing at the threshold of something monumental, something that could redefine humanity's place in the universe. He keyed in his personal access code on his holo tablet, granting Sarah limited access to the data on Omega Echo. As Sarah examined the data on her own device, Rex couldn't shake the feeling that they had just taken the first step on a path that would test humanity's resilience and ingenuity in ways he had never imagined. And deep down, he wondered if humanity was truly ready for what lay beyond the stars. Into the heart of the anomaly. A few days had passed since Commander Rex Morrow granted Sarah access to the classified Omega Echo data. As he delved deeper into her findings, the unsettling picture of a vast, mysterious cosmic force emerged. A force with potential to unravel not just the galaxy but all life as they knew it. Sarah had been thorough, mapping out the anomaly's expanding influence with an intensity and precision that reflected her species' mastery over spatial physics. Still, Rex could see the traces of worry even on her usually stoic face. She knew something he didn't, something more dangerous than she let on. In the command center of Orion 13, Sarah approached Rex with a silent but urgent stride. Her silvery eyes met his, glimmering with determination and an emotion Rex couldn't quite place: fear. "We're ready, Commander," she said, holding out a small device. It was sleek and compact, seemingly composed of an iridescent material that pulsed faintly. "This is a Keitani spatial stabilizer. It's not much, but it will help protect your ship from the effects of the anomaly when we enter it." Rex raised an eyebrow. "You're telling me this device can stabilize an entire region of warp space?" Sarah nodded. "Think of it as a buffer. It won't negate the anomaly's effects, but it will prevent our ship from being torn apart. However, it has a limited range. We'll need to get dangerously close for it to be effective." Rex studied the device, his thoughts racing. The Keitani tech was impressive, no doubt, but there were risks involved, risks he'd have to weigh against the need to understand Omega Echo and its potential threat to humanity. "Understood," he replied, slipping the device into his belt. "But if we're going out there, I want my own crew on the ship." Sarah hesitated, as if measuring his resolve. Then she gave a slight nod. "Agreed, but we'll also be taking 2 of my specialists. They're experienced in anomaly exploration." Rex's mind raced through potential crew members who'd be the best fit for a mission of this kind. He needed individuals with expertise, adaptability, and most importantly, loyalty. Within minutes, he'd assembled his team. Lieutenant Mira Jansen, the station's top physicist, who had spent her career researching cosmic phenomena, and Zain Tariq, a seasoned pilot with a knack for keeping calm in dangerous situations. 2 hours later, the team gathered in the ship's docking bay. The small reconnaissance ship, the Zenith, hummed with energy as they boarded, its systems coming online in preparation for the journey ahead. Sarah's Ketani specialists were already at their posts, their silent efficiency only heightening the tension in the air. Rex took a final look at Mira and Zain, both of whom had expressions that balanced between excitement and trepidation. Our mission is to reach the edge of Omega Echo, gather data, and get out. The Ketani tech should protect us, but we'll need to move carefully. Everyone ready? With nods of confirmation, the team strapped in. As Rex slid into the pilot's chair, Zain took the co-pilot's seat, hands deftly moving over the control panel. Sarah sat near the ship's central console, her eyes focused and unblinking as she activated the stabilizer. The Zenith launched from the docking bay, accelerating toward the anomaly. The journey was initially calm, the stars whizzing past as they left Orion 13 behind. But as they approached the anomaly, the very fabric of space around them seemed to change. Lights warped and twisted, and a strange hum filled the cavern. "We're crossing into the anomaly's outer perimeter," Mira announced, her voice calm but laced with awe. "The readings are unlike anything I've seen before. Space-time density fluctuates here in ways that shouldn't be possible." Sarah stepped over, glancing at the monitor, her expression unreadable. "That's why we're here. If we don't understand this, it could be the end of us all." Zain glanced back, a hint of worry breaking through his calm facade. "End of us all? That's not exactly reassuring, Sarah." She met his gaze, her tone steady. "I'm being honest. The Ketani have encountered anomalies like Omega Echo before. We barely survived the first encounter, and countless others were not so fortunate." The crew fell silent, the weight of her words settling heavily on them. Rex kept his focus on the view ahead, his hands steady on the controls as they moved deeper into the anomaly. The stars outside the ship grew distorted, like streaks of light that bent and twisted in unnatural patterns. The hum grew louder, reverberating through the hull. Suddenly, the Zenith lurched, throwing everyone against their seats. A high-pitched alarm blared, and the control panel flashed red. "We're experiencing spatial turbulence," Zain shouted, his voice straining against the pressure. "If it gets any worse, we might not make it out." Sarah leaped to the stabilizer, adjusting its controls with swift, practiced movements. "Hold steady. I'm boosting the field, but we're getting close to the limit." The ship steadied, and Rex let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He glanced at Mira, who was already running calculations and monitoring the anomaly's fluctuating data on her console. "We're detecting high levels of exotic particles," she said, her voice a mix of excitement and fear. "If we can capture some of these, they could provide answers to fundamental questions about the universe." "Answers we won't get if we're dead," Zain muttered under his breath. As they continued into the depths of the anomaly, Sarah activated the external scanners, capturing detailed readings of the strange spatial phenomena around them. It was unlike anything Rex had seen before, ribbons of energy twisting and coiling like living creatures, their forms shifting constantly. "Look at this," Mira whispered, pointing to the display. "It's as if the anomaly is aware of us." Rex frowned, leaning closer to the screen. "Aware? You mean it's responding to our presence?" "Possibly," Mira replied, eyes wide with fascination. "The readings show an unusual pattern that suggests a form of interaction, almost like it's observing us." A sudden shiver ran down Rex's spine. The idea that they were not only entering an unknown region, but possibly being watched by the anomaly itself unsettled him. But he pushed the thought aside, focusing on the mission. Let's stay on course, he said firmly. The sooner we get our data, the sooner we're out. The zenith pressed deeper into the anomaly, and the Kate Tani stabilizer pulsed brighter, struggling against the increasing gravitational fluctuations. The pressure inside the ship grew intense, a weight pressing down on each of them, making every movement a struggle. Cirrus specialists worked tirelessly at their stations, their focus unbroken, though Rex noticed the occasional flicker of anxiety in their eyes. Suddenly, the ship's alarms blared again, and this time the entire cabin shook violently. The control panel flashed with warnings of a nearby spatial rift, a tear in space-time that threatened to pull them in. "We're too close to the core of the anomaly," Zane shouted, gripping the controls as the ship bucked and swayed. "We need to pull back, or we'll be caught in the rift." Rex clenched his jaw, his mind racing. They had come this far, gathered so much valuable data, but the ship's systems were reaching their limit. One wrong move, and they'd be lost forever. Sarah's voice cut through the chaos, calm and steady. "We have enough data to analyze. We need to retreat now, before the rift destabilizes further." Rex nodded, making the call. "Zane, reverse course. Let's get out of here." With a strained nod, Zane activated the thrusters, steering the zenith away from the rift. The ship groaned under the pressure, the hull creaking ominously as they pulled back. The stabilizer flared brightly, its field flickering under the strain. But as they moved away from the core, the turbulence gradually eased, and the anomaly's pull began to lessen. Finally, they broke free from the anomaly's grip, emerging into open space. The crew let out collective sighs of relief as the alarms ceased, and the ship's systems returned to normal. "Status report," Rex commanded, glancing at each member of the crew. "All systems operational, though a bit worse for wear," Zane said, wiping sweat from his brow. Mira looked at him, her expression one of awe. "Commander, the data we gathered, it's unlike anything humanity has ever seen. This could change everything we know about the universe." Sarah stepped forward, her voice soft but filled with a quiet urgency. "And it may be humanity's only chance for survival." Rex met her gaze, understanding dawning on him. Whatever lay within Omega Echo wasn't just a scientific curiosity. It was a warning, a glimpse into a force far beyond their comprehension, and he knew in that moment that their journey had only just begun. A revelation beyond comprehension. As the crew of the Zenith settled back into Orion 13, their minds weighed down by the enormity of their discovery, the station's sterile, artificial lighting felt somehow comforting. Yet the hum of the engines, the familiar clang of doors, and even the steady rhythm of their steps down the corridor couldn't shake the lingering sense of awe and dread that their journey into Omega Echo had stirred. Rex sat at the head of the conference table, Mira on one side, Zane on the other. Sarah stood near the screen, her silver eyes focused intently on the projections of the data they had gathered. The alien ribbons of energy that writhed and twisted around the anomaly were displayed in high detail, each one captured and analyzed by the Kate Tani equipment on board. As the images spun and looped, Rex couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that he was staring into the universe's most hidden secrets. Mira leaned forward, her gaze locked on the screen. "Commander, what we have here defies all scientific models. The patterns within Omega Echo aren't random. They appear to follow some kind of structure or design, almost like an enormous neural network." Rex's brow furrowed. "A neural network? You mean to say this anomaly is intelligent?" She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Not intelligent in the way we understand, but there's a systematic repetition in the energy flows. The anomaly seems to exhibit a form of awareness, an ability to adapt and respond to external stimuli. When we entered, the patterns shifted, almost as if it was reacting to us. It's something far more complex than anything we've encountered." Rex glanced at Sarah, who had remained silent but attentive. Her expression held a gravity that unnerved him, as if the findings confirmed something she had long feared. "Sarah," he began, breaking the silence. "You've known about the anomalies' behavior, haven't you? Why didn't you tell us?" Sarah's gaze met his, and for the first time, there was something vulnerable in her expression. The Caetani have encountered anomalies like this one before, but Omega Echo is different. This one has been expanding rapidly, growing in ways we cannot fully understand. It could consume entire systems. "That's why I came here, Commander. I hope the Galactic Alliance and the Caetani could work together to find a solution before it's too late." Zane crossed his arms, his expression skeptical. "But why us? With all your advanced technology, you could have handled this on your own." Sarah looked at him, her silver eyes flashing. "Our technology may be advanced, but it isn't enough. We lack the ability to interact with Omega Echo's unique energies in the same way your species can. Humanity has an ability we cannot replicate, an ability to survive in conditions where logic says survival is impossible. You may not realize it, but human resilience is unmatched." Rex exchanged a glance with Mira, who was still studying the screen, a glimmer of fascination in her eyes. "So we're not just allies in this. We're an essential part of whatever solution you're hoping to find." Sarah nodded, her gaze steady. "Exactly. That's why I need you to lead the next mission. We have a theory, a possibility, really, that could give us a chance to halt the anomaly's expansion. But it will be dangerous. You'll be venturing directly into its core." Zane shifted uncomfortably. "So let me get this straight. We're supposed to dive right back into the heart of the beast that almost crushed us the first time." Rex couldn't suppress a grin. "That's about the size of it, Zane." Still interested, Zane sighed, his usual bravado tempered by the magnitude of the task. "I'm in. Someone's got to keep you from doing anything reckless." Sarah activated the projector, displaying a rotating model of Omega Echo's core. Strange energy tendrils extended from it like veins, pulsating with an eerie rhythm. "Our best guess is that Omega Echo is an interface, a bridge, if you will, between different dimensions. It's tearing through our space because it lacks a stable anchor. We believe if we can introduce a counter-frequency, we can stabilize the anomaly, slow it down, maybe even contain it." Mira's eyes widened. A counter-frequency that would require something to anchor it. An enormous amount of energy, too. Sarah nodded. "Exactly. We believe that Caetani's stabilizer, combined with your human technologies, can generate the energy needed to create the anchor. But the process will be volatile. Once we initiate the counter-frequency, you'll only have minutes to escape before the core destabilizes further. If it fails, we may not get another chance." Rex took a deep breath, considering the risks. This was beyond anything he had anticipated, but humanity's survival, and perhaps the galaxy's, depended on their success. "If this is our best shot, we have to take it. Mira, Zane, you're with me." Mira nodded, her usual calm demeanor replaced with a spark of resolve. "Absolutely, Commander. This is the opportunity of a lifetime. I couldn't sit this one out." Zane smirked, shaking his head. "I didn't sign up for this, but here we are. Let's get it done." Sarah turned to the group, her voice filled with gratitude and admiration. "Thank you. The Caetani have long believed that only humanity could achieve what needs to be done here. We will ensure that your efforts are not in vain." Within hours, the team was back on the Zenith, the ship now outfitted with a fusion of human and Caetani technology. A custom-built counter-frequency generator pulsed in the rear of the ship, secured and monitored by Sarah's specialists. They had loaded the ship with enough fuel and energy reserves to attempt one pass into Omega Echo's core. As they approached the anomaly again, the familiar turbulence began, but this time they were prepared. The Caetani stabilizer hummed, creating a protective bubble around the ship, shielding it from the worst of the spatial distortions. "Hold steady," Rex ordered, his voice calm and controlled. "Everyone keep an eye on your stations. This is going to be a bumpy ride." They plunged deeper into the anomaly, the twisting ribbons of energy growing brighter, more erratic. The ship rattled violently, and alarms blared, warning of rapidly increasing gravitational forces. Mira gripped her console, her eyes glued to the screen as she monitored the counter-frequency generator. "We're nearing the core," she reported. "Generator output is stable. Ready to initiate the sequence on your command, Commander." Rex took a steadying breath, his gaze fixed on the swirling maelstrom beyond the ship's hull. "Do it, Mira. Activate the counter-frequency." Mira keyed in the sequence, and a low hum reverberated through the ship as the generator powered up. A beam of energy shot from the zenith's core, latching onto the anomaly's nucleus. The ribbons of energy seemed to recoil, as though the anomaly itself was reacting to the intrusion. "We've established contact," Sarah called out, her hands moving deftly over her controls. "The stabilizer is holding, but the anomaly's fighting back. It's adapting." The hum of the generator grew louder, and the ship shook with increasing violence as the counter-frequency collided with the anomaly's energy flows. The core of Omega Echo pulsed erratically, its rhythm faltering as the two forces clashed. "Commander," Mira shouted over the noise. "The anomaly's structure is destabilizing. We have maybe 2 minutes before it reaches critical mass." Rex gripped the controls, his heart pounding. "Zane, prepare for an immediate retreat. We're not sticking around for the explosion." But just as Zane activated the thrusters, a piercing light enveloped the ship, and the zenith was pulled deeper into the anomaly. Alarms blared, and the ship's hull groaned under the strain. The Kate Tani stabilizer flickered, struggling to maintain the protective bubble. "Sarah, what's happening?" Rex shouted, fighting to keep control of the ship. Sarah's voice was taut with urgency. "The anomaly is collapsing inward. It's trying to absorb us. We're caught in a gravitational eddy. If we don't break free now, we'll be torn apart." Rex glanced at Zane, who was desperately trying to override the ship's systems, but the controls had locked. They were at the mercy of the anomaly's pull. Thinking quickly, Mira recalibrated the counter-frequency, amplifying its output. "I'm giving it everything we've got. If this works, it might throw us clear of the core." Rex nodded, trusting her judgment. "Do it." Mira activated the recalibration, and the generator surged, sending a powerful wave of energy through the anomaly. The ship lurched violently, and with a blinding flash, they were expelled from Omega Echo, tumbling out into open space. The crew sat in stunned silence as the alarms ceased, the quiet settling around them like a fragile cocoon. Rex looked around, ensuring everyone was unharmed before he allowed himself a sigh of relief. Mira checked the sensors, her voice shaking. "Commander, the anomaly. It's stabilizing. We did it." Rex leaned back, feeling the weight of what they had accomplished. The crew shared a moment of quiet triumph, each of them knowing they had faced the impossible and emerged victorious. But as they stared out at the stars, the unspoken question lingered. What else lay beyond, waiting to test humanity's resilience once more? Shadows from the abyss. The zenith's return to Orion 13 was met with silence, broken only by the soft hum of the station's systems. Each crew member felt the weight of their mission and what they had left behind within the anomaly. But there was no time for rest. As Rex and his team disembarked, the urgency of a new threat became evident. Sarah had received an encrypted communication from the Kate Tani High Council, transmitted directly to her device moments after the ship docked. She stood alone in the conference room, her silver eyes scanning the message with growing concern. A pulse of dread surged through her as she realized the implications. Omega Echo's stabilization wasn't the end, it was just the beginning. Rex, Mira, and Zane joined her moments later, looking to her for answers. "Sarah, what's going on?" Rex asked, catching sight of her tense expression. She looked up, her usual calm shaken. "There's more we didn't account for. The Kate Tani have detected something beyond Omega Echo." "Beyond?" Mira's voice was laced with disbelief. "You're saying there's more than one of these anomalies?" Sarah nodded, her voice steady despite the enormity of what she was about to say. Omega Echo was only a gateway. When we stabilized it, we sent out a signal, one that didn't just echo through our dimension, but others as well. The Caetani High Council believes we may have unintentionally alerted entities beyond our understanding. Zane's face paled. Are you saying we might have opened the door to something? Yes, Sarah replied. Something ancient. Something alive. Rex felt a chill run down his spine. As a commander, he was used to danger, but this was beyond anything they had faced. How long do we have? Sarah tapped her device, projecting a holographic map of the surrounding sectors. We've detected faint energy signatures moving from the outer edges of explored space. The Caetani refer to them as the Nox Eternals, entities that exist beyond the normal constraints of matter and time. If the readings are accurate, they're moving toward us. Our stabilization attempt may have been seen as an invitation. Rex exchanged a glance with Mira, who looked equally unnerved. What are these Nox Eternals? Have the Caetani encountered them before? Sarah hesitated, as if reluctant to continue. Only in legends. They are said to be remnants of an ancient civilization that existed before the stars, beings who consumed energy to survive. The Caetani's ancestors spoke of them as shadows, creatures that devour everything in their path, from planets to entire star systems. Zane let out a low whistle. So we're dealing with a cosmic predator. Fantastic. Rex rubbed his temples, trying to process the information. They had barely escaped Omega Echo, and now they were facing an even greater threat. If they're drawn to energy, they'll come for the station first. Sarah nodded. Orion 13's energy output is like a beacon to them. We have to be prepared. The Council has authorized me to share defensive protocols, but even they aren't certain it will be enough. Mira, always the pragmatist, spoke up. So we need a way to hide our energy signature, to make Orion 13 as unappealing as possible. Sarah's expression brightened slightly. Exactly. The Caetani have cloaking technology that can mask energy outputs. However, we'll need to modify it for a structure of this size, and we'll have to shut down non-essential systems. The energy will need to be diverted to maintain the cloak. Zane glanced at Rex. You think the crew is ready for a full blackout? Rex frowned. A full blackout would mean they'd be operating on minimal life support, with no defenses beyond the Caetani cloaking. But they had no other choice. They'll have to be. Mira, gather a team to start rerouting the energy systems. Zane, prep the station's crew for emergency protocols. I want everyone ready in under an hour. The crew moved quickly, slipping into the roles they had trained for but never expected to use. Mira's team of engineers worked tirelessly to adapt the Caetani cloaking technology to Orion 13's massive energy grid, while Zane briefed the station's personnel on blackout protocols, preparing them for a temporary suspension of most functions. As they worked, a heavy tension hung over them. Every creak of the station, every flicker of a light, felt ominous, as though the very walls were aware of the impending threat. Finally, after hours of effort, Mira's voice crackled over the intercom. Cloaking sequence is ready, initiating blackout in 3, 2, 1. The station's lights dimmed, and for a moment, complete silence enveloped Orion 13. The faint hum of life support was the only sound as the crew held their breath, waiting for something, anything, to happen. As they stood in the darkness, the void outside the station felt closer, almost pressing against them. Sarah joined Rex on the observation deck, her gaze distant. We're in a dangerous position, Commander. If the Nox Eternals find us, there's no guarantee we can survive. Rex looked out at the stars, their dim light casting long shadows across the room. We've faced impossible odds before, Sarah. Humanity survived because we adapt, and will adapt now, no matter what it takes. Sarah's expression softened. That's what makes you remarkable. The Caetani admire your resilience, Commander, but even they cannot comprehend the full extent of human ingenuity. It may be the one advantage we have. They stood in silence, the weight of their words hanging between them. But before either could speak, the station's alarm suddenly blared, shattering the stillness. "Commander." Mira's voice crackled through the comms, urgent and strained. "We've detected an energy signature. It's faint, but it's approaching fast. The Nox Eternals. They're here." Rex's pulse quickened. "How far out?" "Less than a light year," she replied. "At their current speed, they'll be upon us in minutes." Without hesitation, Rex turned to Sarah. "Is the cloaking fully operational?" "Yes," she answered, her voice tense. "But if they sense even a trace of energy from the station, they'll zero in on us." "Understood. Mira, double-check the energy diversions. Zane, instruct all personnel to remain absolutely silent. No unnecessary movement, no unnecessary breathing if possible." The next few minutes passed in a haze of fear and tension. Every member of the crew waited in total silence, bracing themselves as the Nox Eternals approached. From the observation deck, Rex and Sarah watched as a shadowy figure loomed in the distance, shifting and undulating, like a dark cloud moving with a purposeful intent. Even from a distance, Rex could sense the raw, malevolent energy emanating from the entity. Its form was both mesmerizing and horrifying, a swirling mass of shadows that seemed to absorb the very light around it. The darkness felt suffocating, as if the entity was pulling the life out of the stars themselves. Sarah leaned forward, her voice barely a whisper. "This is only one of them. They often travel in pairs or even groups." The shadow moved closer, brushing past Orion 13 without breaking stride, as if searching for a scent it couldn't quite catch. Rex's heart pounded as the entity drifted by, seemingly unaware of their presence, but he didn't dare to breathe a sigh of relief. Suddenly, the station shuddered. A faint glow appeared near the power core, a last-minute diagnostic that had triggered too late to disable. The entity halted, its shape contorting as it zeroed in on the faint energy signature. Slowly it turned, drifting toward the station like a predator drawn to wounded prey. "Damn it," Rex muttered, activating his comms. "Mira, shut down the core, now." But it was too late. The Nox Eternal closed in, its massive form pressing against the station's outer hull. The lights flickered, and the temperature inside Orion 13 dropped, as though the creature was draining the very warmth from their environment. Panic rippled through the crew, their breaths misting in the sudden cold. Sarah watched in horror as the entity began to envelop the station, its shadowy tendrils stretching across the hull. "If it breaches the hull, it will consume everything inside," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Rex clenched his fists, his mind racing. They couldn't fight this creature conventionally, and they couldn't outrun it, but there had to be a way to survive. "Zane," he said into the comms, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at him. "Prepare to launch the station's emergency beacons. Set them to the highest frequency and release them on my mark." Sarah's eyes widened in realization. "You're planning to lure it away." "It's our only chance," he replied grimly. "If it follows the beacons, it might lose interest in us." Zane's voice crackled over the comms. "Beacons ready, Commander." Rex took a deep breath, his heart pounding. "On my mark, release." The beacons launched, emitting high-frequency signals that pulsed with energy, bright and unmistakable. The Nox Eternal froze, its dark form shuddering as it sensed the new source of energy. In a heartbeat, it detached from the station, moving toward the beacons like a moth drawn to a flame. The crew watched in tense silence as the entity followed the trail of beacons, drifting farther and farther from the station. Finally, the Nox Eternal faded from view, disappearing into the depths of space. The tension broke, and a collective sigh of relief filled the station. Rex closed his eyes, the weight of their survival settling over him. Sarah placed a hand on his shoulder, her gaze filled with admiration. "You did it, Commander. You saved us." But Rex shook his head, his expression grim. "This was just one of them, and they know we're here now. We've bought ourselves time, but the real fight is still ahead. The gathering storm. In the aftermath of their close encounter with the Nox Eternal, the crew of Orion 13 had little time to celebrate their survival. The specter of the ancient entity still loomed large in their minds, and they all knew that the danger hadn't passed. Instead, it had only just begun. The Galactic Alliance, aware of the incident thanks to urgent messages relayed from the station, had called an emergency council. Representatives from every member species gathered to decide humanity's and the galaxy's next steps. Commander Rex Morrow and Sarah had been called to attend the council meeting in person. So, leaving Mira in charge of Orion 13, Rex and Sarah boarded a high-speed transport ship bound for the council's central station, Terra Nova, located in neutral space near the heart of the Galactic Alliance. The journey was tense. Each of them reviewed reports and analyses of the data gathered on Omega Echo and the Nox Eternal, attempting to piece together any possible strategies for defense. As they neared Terra Nova, a sprawling fortress orbiting a pale, icy moon, Rex felt a swell of pride tempered with dread. The station was one of the most fortified structures ever built, designed as a refuge and command center in times of galactic crisis. It was equipped with defenses that could repel entire fleets, yet Rex couldn't shake the thought that they might not be enough against an enemy that defied the very fabric of reality. They docked at the main bay and were escorted to the council chamber, a grand, amphitheater-like room with tiered seating for representatives of each species. The Galactic Alliance's High Chancellor, a distinguished yet stoic figure named Leora Thane, presided over the meeting. Her holographic image hovered above the council members, eyes piercing and grave. As Rex and Sarah took their places, silence fell over the chamber. Chancellor Thane addressed the assembly. Representatives, we gather today in the shadow of a threat beyond our comprehension. Commander Morrow and Sarah of the Caetani bring grave news, which they will share now. Rex stepped forward, his voice steady as he described their encounters with Omega Echo, their brush with the Nox Eternal, and the terrifying implications of what they'd learned. He didn't hold back any details, knowing that sugarcoating the truth would do more harm than good. When he finished, a murmur rippled through the assembly. It was clear that many had already known parts of the story, but hearing the full account sent a wave of unease through them all. Sarah took a breath, her calm demeanor masking the urgency in her words. The Caetani have long known of the Nox Eternals, but only in legends. We believed them to be myths, warnings passed down by our ancestors. But Commander Morrow's data confirms it. They are real, and they are already on the move. The room erupted into hushed but frantic discussions. Representatives from the Lenari, the ethereal energy-based beings, spoke in rapid clicks, while the Bolrath, towering stone-skinned warriors, growled in their guttural tongue. Even the Stonai, a species renowned for their stoicism, exchanged worried glances. The entire chamber was alive with a collective sense of dread. Chancellor Thane raised a hand, silencing the room. Commander Morrow, Sarah, what do you recommend as our next course of action? Rex exchanged a glance with Sarah before answering. Our best option is to prepare a defense, one that includes cooperation between all species. We can't rely on our individual technologies alone. If we combine the Caetani's cloaking tech with the Lenori's energy manipulation abilities and the Bolrath's reinforcement shields, we might stand a chance. Sarah nodded, her gaze steady as she added, the Nox Eternals feed on energy, absorbing everything in their path. We need to create an artificial energy field that will attract them while keeping our own defenses masked. It's risky, but it could give us the time needed to understand and exploit any weaknesses they may have. A representative from the Bolrath stood, his voice a deep rumble. You speak of risking our warriors in a battle that may have no end. Are you asking us to sacrifice our people for humanity's mistake? Rex held his ground. This isn't just a threat to humanity. If we fall, it will come for you next. We're in this together, whether we like it or not. Chancellor Thane nodded solemnly. Commander Morrow is right. If the Nox Eternals are indeed an ancient threat, they will not stop with humanity. We must prepare for a galactic alliance unlike any other, a unified front that brings together every strength we have. The council members reluctantly agreed, their expressions a mixture of resolve and fear. Plans were laid out for an unprecedented coalition effort to construct defensive stations at key points around inhabited sectors. Each species would contribute their most advanced technologies and their best warriors, pooling resources for a single desperate goal: survival. The days that followed were a whirlwind of preparations and alliances. The Galactic Alliance dispatched an armada of ships, each outfitted with hybrid technologies, cloaking mechanisms, energy dampeners, and experimental weaponry designed to disrupt energy-based entities. Orion 13 was chosen as one of the key points of defense, given its proximity to the location where the Nox Eternal was first detected. Mira oversaw the retrofitting of the station, while Sarah provided the Caetani's cloaking schematics and integrated them into the Alliance's systems. Meanwhile, Rex spent his days training the Coalition forces. Soldiers from different species filled the station's training rooms, each one eager to prove their worth, even if their faces betrayed the fear that lurked beneath. Rex knew that some of them wouldn't survive the battles ahead, but he also knew that their resolve would be humanity's best weapon. In an impromptu address, he spoke to the gathered forces. "We're facing an enemy we don't fully understand, one that threatens everything we've built and everyone we love. But we're not here to surrender. We're here to fight. And remember, no matter what species you come from, no matter your origin, you're standing here because you believe in something worth defending. Together, we're more than a match for whatever the darkness brings." A roar echoed through the hall as the soldiers raised their weapons, their fear momentarily replaced by fierce determination. Finally, the day arrived. Reports of unusual energy disturbances began flooding in from sectors along the galactic border. The Nox Eternals had arrived, their dark forms sweeping through the stars, consuming everything in their path. On the observation deck of Orion 13, Rex, Sarah, Mira, and Zane stood together, watching as the first of the entities approached. "Remember the plan," Rex said, his gaze focused on the monstrous figure in the distance. "We activate the decoys, draw them away, and hit them with everything we've got." Mira, her face set with resolve, activated the energy decoys. Bright orbs of artificial energy burst into life around the station, glowing like stars against the blackness of space. The Nox Eternal slowed, its shadowy form flickering as it sensed the energy signatures. It shifted, moving toward the decoys with a predatory grace, as if savoring the moment before striking. As the Nox Eternal reached the first decoy, Mira triggered the energy dampeners. The orb collapsed, sending out a pulse that briefly disrupted the creature's form. It recoiled, momentarily destabilized, but it quickly regained its shape, pulsing with renewed aggression. "Hit it again," Rex ordered, his voice steady. A second decoy exploded, releasing another energy pulse. This time, the creature faltered, parts of its shadowy body dispersing into the void. But the reprieve was brief, and the Nox Eternal began to adapt, its form stabilizing faster with each pulse. Sarah's eyes widened. "It's learning. Every time we hit it, it adapts." Rex cursed under his breath. They were running out of decoys, and each pulse was becoming less effective. He activated his comms, broadcasting to the Coalition forces. "Prepare for direct engagement. We need to keep it contained, or it will break through." The Coalition fleet moved into formation around the entity, their weapons primed. Linari's ships shimmered as they channeled beams of pure energy, while Bolrath cruisers activated their reinforced shields, creating a barrier around the Nox Eternal. For a brief, desperate moment, the creature seemed contained, surrounded by a wall of light and energy. "Now's our chance," Zane said, hands white-knuckled on the controls. But just as the Coalition forces prepared to unleash their firepower, the Nox Eternal surged forward, its form stretching and splitting as if in response to the attack. Suddenly, it was everywhere, its shadowy tendrils weaving through the fleet, reaching out to drain the ship's energy. One by one, The lights of the ships flickered and died, their crews screaming over the comms as the creature consumed them. "Fall back," Rex shouted, his heart pounding. "Everyone fall back." The fleet scrambled to retreat, but the Nox Eternal was relentless, its form expanding to cover the void like a storm cloud, blotting out the stars. Ships that had been moments from escape were swallowed whole, their lights winking out in the darkness. Desperation clawed at Rex as he watched the fleet's formation disintegrate. They were outmatched, their combined might barely a nuisance to the creature. But even as he struggled to find a solution, a voice crackled over the comms, Mira's voice, urgent but resolute. "Commander, I have an idea. If we combine the energy dampeners with the Linari's manipulation abilities, we could create a concentrated energy pulse. It might not destroy the Nox Eternal, but it could buy us time to escape." Rex didn't hesitate. "Do it, Mira. Everyone else, divert all power to support the dampeners." The Coalition forces regrouped, their ships converging to create a single focused beam of energy. The Nox Eternal, sensing the buildup, began to pull back, but it was too late. Mira triggered the pulse, and a blinding wave of energy erupted from the fleet, slamming into the creature. The Nox Eternal screamed, a sound that echoed through the minds of every soldier and pilot, raw and filled with rage. The creature's form wavered, parts of it scattering into the void, buying precious moments for the fleet to retreat. As Orion 13's systems registered the retreat of the Nox Eternal, a somber relief settled over the crew. They had survived, but at a heavy cost. On the observation deck, Rex looked out at the stars, knowing that the battle was far from over. The Nox Eternals had shown only a fraction of their power, and they would return, stronger, more relentless. But he also knew that the Coalition, bruised but unbroken, would be ready. Sarah stood beside him, her gaze unreadable. "Commander, this is only the beginning." Rex nodded, his eyes hard with determination. "Then we'll be ready. Whatever it takes, we'll be ready."